Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now with today's headlines. Free Muslim Association releases important message on the International Day of Living Together in Peace. Hazaras in Afghanistan face brutal persecution under the Taliban rule. Gaza on the brink as humanitarian crisis deepens. And plans to ban same-sex education for children under 9. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Yunus Dawood and you're watching Shia Waves live from London, only on Imam Hussein TV 3. On the International Day of Living Together in Peace, the Free Muslim Association, an international anti-violence organization, has called for the urgent action to stop the fighting in conflict zones around the world. The organization urged for an inclusive international conference to extinguish the flames of war raging in many countries, coinciding with the International Day of Living Together in Peace, which is observed on May the 16th. In its message, the organization reiterated its call for spreading peace among all humanity, urging all responsible parties and influential individuals to take serious action to stop the fighting in conflict areas. It concluded its message by emphasizing that the entire international community is responsible for ending the two wars, working to save civilians and innocent people from the horrors of combat, and striving to stop unjustified and irresponsible bloodshed. Since the Taliban's reinsurgence in Afghanistan, the Hazara ethnic minority and Shia Muslim population have faced a devastating campaign of escalated violence, systematic discrimination, and social isolation. More details in the following report.
The Taliban's discriminatory policies have stripped Hazaras and Shias of their fundamental rights and freedoms. The Taliban's early actions included abolishing the Shia personal status law, removing Ja'fari jurisprudence from the education system, and dismissing Shia judges. Their interim government also conspicuously lacks any Hazara or Shia representation, further undermining the Shia population's status as Afghan citizens. The targeting of Hazaras has intensified under Taliban rule, with numerous deadly attacks on schools, mosques, and educational centers. In September 2022, a suicide bombing at a Hazara education center killed 35 students, with no group claiming responsibility. Lord Alton of Liverpool warned of a serious and escalating risk of genocide against the Hazara. The Taliban have also enacted sweeping bans on Shia literature and jurisprudence, stripping these communities of their cultural identity. Officials have even denied the presence of sectarian diversity in Afghanistan, asserting that all Afghans must adhere to the Sunni Hanafi school. Hazaras and Shias have been systematically excluded from governance, with no representation in ministries, provincial administrations, or the judiciary. The stark absence of Shia or Hazara leadership within Afghanistan's governance is conspicuous, the text states. Such pervasive discrimination erodes national unity and social fabric. The Taliban's policies directly violate international human rights treaties, as well as core Islamic principles of equality and non-discrimination. The text argues that the Taliban's actions are antithetical to the tenets of human rights and core Islamic values. As the persecution of Hazaras and Shias continues, the future of Afghanistan remains in peril, with the risk of spiraling ethno-religious conflict looming large. This is Ali Al-Hadi reporting for Shia Waves.
The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is intensifying at an alarming rate, with the UN officials warning that all aid operations could grind to a halt within just 2 to 3 days. The situation in Gaza, which is under intense Israeli attacks, continues to be catastrophic and is worsening day by day, said Olga Cherevko, spokesperson for the UN Humanitarian Office in Gaza. Over 450,000 Palestinians have already fled their homes in Rafah following Israeli demands for evacuation on May the 6th. The UN official noted that the Gaza's infrastructure has been devastated, with less than a third of hospitals able to provide partial services. The United Nations on Wednesday reported that there are now 8 functional field hospitals in the city of Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip. To make matters worse, the closure of the Rafah border crossing by Israeli forces on May the 6th has completely halted the flow of humanitarian aid into the enclave. The UN is urgently calling for the immediate reopening of border crossings and a substantial increase in humanitarian aid to avert a catastrophic collapse in the Gaza Strip. Let's take a look back at today's main headlines. Free Muslim Association releases important message on the International Day of Living Together in Peace. Hazaras in Afghanistan face brutal persecution under the Taliban rule. And Gaza on the brink as humanitarian crisis deepens. Also tonight, Grand Ayatollah Shirazi says in cases where there is no access to a just ruler, one should refer to the ruler of the Sharia. A new guidance expected to be published today is that schools in England will be banned from teaching sex education to children under 9. This may also include plans to ban any children being taught about gender identity. Paul Whiteman, General Secretary at the School Leaders Union, said that if that has been leaked is accurate, the government must provide the evidence which is unequivocally shows that such age limits will improve the support and protection and safeguarding of children and young people. Relationships education has been compulsory for primary schools since September of 2022. At secondary school, relationships, sex and health education is mandatory and covers content on a wider range of key topics. It includes sex and sexual relationships, consent, online abuse, domestic abuse and female genital mutilation. And now we'll continue with some shorter news. Saudi authorities carried out the death sentence against the young man Hassan Ahmed al-Nasser from the Eastern Province on Monday. Al-Nasser was charged with funding terrorism and having connections with terrorist members, charges that right sources have labelled as fabricated and used by the Saudi Ministry of Interior to justify the execution of a prisoner of consciousness. This execution is part of a series of measures targeting activists and descendants in the kingdoms, with human rights reports confirming that al-Nasser's trial did not adhere to international standards of fair trials. Despite the execution, Saudi authorities have withheld al-Nasser's body and have not informed his family of his burial location, preventing them from holding funeral ceremonies for him. The World Health Organization has authorized a second Dengue vaccine that could protect millions worldwide against the mosquito-borne disease. The vaccine, developed by the Japanese pharmaceutical Takeda, is recommended for use in children aged 6 to 16 years old living in regions with high dengue rates, the source mentioned. The two-dose vaccine known as Kunduga has previously approved by the European Medicines Agency in 2022. The World Health Organization approval now enables donor agencies and the UN to procure the vaccine for poorer countries. Studies have shown Takeda's vaccine to be around 84% effective in preventing hospitalization and 61% effective in stopping the dengue symptoms. Myanmar's junta forces have intensified their assault on ethnic minority insurgents in western Rakhine State, carrying out artillery strikes and airstrikes that have left at least 15 civilians dead and 16 wounded. The junta's air force also bombed a hospital and school on Tuesday in Wiegi Dont village, injuring as many as 20 patients and healthcare workers, the source mentioned. More than 200 civilians have been killed and nearly 600 have been wounded by air raids, landmines and small heavy weapons in the 6 months since November. A new report by the human rights organization Equality Now has revealed that discriminatory family laws are stalling progress on human rights in parts of Africa. The study examined that family law and practices in 20 African countries found that while there has been some progress in recent decades, significant inequalities persist when it comes to marriage, divorce and child custody and inheritance and property rights. A key issue highlighted in the report is the challenge posed by pluralistic legal systems where statutory legislation exists alongside customary and religious laws, making interpretation and application difficult. Most African countries have ratified international protocols such as the Maputo Protocol and the UN's Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which guarantees strong protections for women. Researchers have identified an Earth-sized exoplanet orbiting a small cool star just 55 light-years from Earth. The rocky well dubbed Speculus 3b circles its host star once every 17 hours, completing a year in less than a day on Earth. The exoplanet orbits an ultra-cool red dwarf, half as hot as the Sun and 100 times less luminous, scientists have noted. Speculus 3b is believed to be tidally locked with one side permanently facing the star and the other cast in endless darkness. The daily Scurry meetings of Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq al-Hussein al-Shirazi was held on Tuesday the 5th of Dhul Qa'dah. In this meeting, it was discussed when there is no access to a just ruler, the other options that a person may have. Let's watch the statements of Grand Ayatollah Shirazi together.
بله چون آخه حاکم باید فتوا داشته باشه به نامر مشهور، یعنی باید مجتهد باشه. از این استفاده کردن ولی حالا همونجا با فیهی گفتن اشکال کردن. همون بالایمان و البینات، مگر یه مواردی استثناء باشه، مثل که خود پیغمبر، خود امیرالمومنین صلوات الله علیه و آله یه استثناءاتی داشتن، با اینکه خودشون فرمودن انما اقضی بینکم. حضرت حجت عجل الله فرجه شریف و صلوات الله و سلامه علیه غیر از یه موارد خاصه استثناء مثل ظالمین بزرگ، نه همون روایتی که داره که به حکم داوود، تو همونجا تو بعضی روایاتش داره که خود داوود خدای عزوجل به او فرمود انا جعل داوود انا جعلناک خلیفة فی الارض فاحکم بین الناس بالحق. داوود علیه السلام عرض کرد خدا چجوری حکم کنم؟ خدای عزوجل فرمود اضفهم الی اسمی، مضمون روایت، و حلفهم و اطلب منهم البینه. خود داوودم با ایمان و بینات میکرد، استثناء بود جایی که بی بینه باشه، در موارد استثناست. بله، یعنی جمع روایات اقتضا میکنه اینه که بگیم در مورد استثناست، مثل که خود پیغمبر فرمودن انما اقضی بینکم، اما یه استثناءاتی هم داشته.
We have reached the end of today's news. Let's take a look back at the main headlines for this evening. Free Muslim Association releases an important message on the International Day of Living Together in Peace. Hazaras in Afghanistan face brutal persecution under the Taliban rule. Gaza on the brink as humanitarian crisis deepens. Plans to ban sex education for children under 9. And the Grand Ayatollah Shirazi says in cases where there is no access to a just ruler, one should refer to the ruler of the Sharia. You can view the latest news on our website, or you can send news of your city or country to be published on our news agency. Contact us on the numbers at the bottom of the screen. Thank you all for watching, and we pray to Allah the Almighty to hasten the reappearance of the Master of our time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When I call people that I met, let's say 5 years ago in Karbala during work, I call them 5 years on. I'm like, Assalamu alaikum, it's Murtada. They're like, which Murtada? I'm like, the one of Whitehead. The Husseiniya played a massive role for me, for all the other Shabab, all the other kids who grew up with me.
Yeah.
I think without the Husseiniya, none of us will be where we are now. A majority of the Shabab went and done Akbar Foundation.